Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be a book haul. I posted my last book haul of last year, I think in either November or early December, and since then I have acquired quite a few books. So for Christmas, I did get several gift cards for bookstores. I also received some books from my family. I actually think only one of these is an actual gift that I got. The rest of them are gift card books that I picked up. And then just other bits and bobs that I picked up along the way. So without further ado, there are quite a few books. Like seriously, this is the biggest book haul I've ever done. There are a lot of books in this stack. So I'm just gonna start and get through them as quickly as I can. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about them if I know about them. And then some of these books are books that I've already read. Some of these books are books that I read before I bought them because I knew I would want to either reread them or I wanted to have them on my shelves. Some of these books are duplicate books. I actually think there's only one of those where I own the other books, but we're just gonna start and go through this as quickly as I possibly can. First up, I have The Cartographers. I clearly got this at Half Price Books. I need to remove the sticker. This was one of my favorite books 2 years ago, I think. It's by Pink Shepherd. It's about a woman who, her whole family is cartographers, and her mom dies before the book starts, and at the very beginning of the book, her dad has died, and she hasn't had any contact with him in like a decade because she used to work at the New York Public Library as a cartographer intern where he works, and she finds this box of maps, like old maps, and there's one gas station map in the box. And she brings them to her dad's attention and is like, hey, I think these are like real maps. And he gets really mad at her and kicks her out of the library. And it's like a very out of character reaction for him and also like kind of out of left field. So she hasn't seen him since then, but he has died and she's been asked to go to the library to unpack his desk, and she finds the folded up gas station map in the desk. And she's like, why would he keep this if he was so mad at me for bringing it to his attention anyways? And so the book goes from there. I love this book. I plan on rereading it someday, and I'm glad that I own a copy of it now. The next book is a book that I actually read in January, and that is Gods of Jade and Shadow. I picked this up before I read it. I ended up giving it 3 stars, so I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this forever, but I will be keeping it for right now because, as I've mentioned, I'm trying to fill my shelves. I am glad that I read it. This is an adult fantasy, but it reads like YA, so I would consider it a YA fantasy. It's based on Mayan mythology, and it's set in the 1920s, and it's about this girl who finds out that her family has been keeping this god in a box on behalf of another god, and she accidentally releases him and then has to go help him find his power throughout Mexico and the Southwest United States. It's a very interesting story. It just didn't totally work for me, but I am glad that I own it, and I do think it's a beautiful cover. I have heard mixed reviews on this book, but I do want to read more of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's backlist, so I'm glad that I read it. Next, we have a book that I have not read yet, and that is A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi book. I've heard this described as cozy sci-fi, so I'm not entirely sure how this will go for me because, as we know, I don't love cozies, but this is, I believe, following a crew that is exploring a planet. And I don't know that much more about it than that, but I think it like really delves into like culture, community, who these people are. And I'm interested to read this. I think I heard Emily Fox from Books with Emily Fox rave about this a few years ago, and I've been meaning to pick it up since then, so now I own it. Another book that I picked up that I've already read is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. I looked on Goodreads. Apparently I only gave this 3 stars. I remember giving it 4 stars and feeling like very drawn to it, but also feeling like it was almost too short to be a complete story. But I do want to reread this at some point. I'm hoping to actually get to it kind of soon because I want to spark my memory, but I'm glad that I own this one. I read another Sarah Gailey this past year that became one of my favorite books of the year. So I do like her writing style, and I'm excited to read this one physically because last time I listened to it as an audiobook. Then I picked up another book that I actually have already read, and that is really good, actually, by Monica Heisey. This is it's like sad girl lit fic. It's about a woman who is divorced, and she is just getting divorced. She's really young for a divorce. She thinks she's in her late 20s, and it's about her like struggling with the devolution of this relationship and how she reacts to that. I gave this book 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I liked the beginning of it. I was really enjoying it. It got to a point where I was like not enjoying it anymore, and I wasn't sure if I liked this character, and then it looks up at the end. So for me, this was a good one. I'm glad that I own it, and I am glad that I bought it. I don't know. I bought it before I read it, and I'm gonna keep it. So next up, I have The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I have not read this, and I don't know what it's about. So I'm not gonna look into what it's about, but I read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell and loved it a few years ago. It was one of my favorite things that I read, and I'm really excited to read more from her. I also love this cover. I think it's so pretty, so fun. So I'm very glad that I bought this, and I hopefully will get to it at some point soon. Next up, I have Crooked Kingdom, which I also got from Half Price Books. I hate the sticker system there, but this is the second book in the duology Six of Crows, and the first book is a heist book. I don't know what the second book is really going to follow, but I assume it's going to be the same characters at the conclusion of that heist, and then probably getting into more shenanigans. I'm excited to read this. I really enjoyed Six of Crows. I talked about that again in January, and so I picked up the sequel, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get the other books in the Grishaverse as well, in the same like paperback editions, so that they all match. Really enjoyed Six of Crows. Hopefully we'll get to this one soon. Next up, I bought 2 YA contemporaries, which is kind of odd for me, but first up is The Start of Me and You, which is a book that I read a few years ago and absolutely adored. So I want to reread this at some point, which is why I bought it. And I got the sequel to it, which is The Map from Here to There. I did not realize that I bought one in hardback and one in paperback, but that doesn't really bother me that much, to be honest with you. I'm a little annoyed because I prefer reading paperbacks to hardbacks, but I'm not mad. So this book, this one, follows a girl who is a teenager and her like first boyfriend died in an accident, and it's like a year after that accident. Everyone's still kind of treating her weird, but like they weren't like in love. They were just like dating as teenagers. So it's kind of an odd feeling for her, is that she feels like everyone thinks she should be mourning him a lot more than she actually like really is. And she's decided that now that it's been a year, she's going to join a club, she's going to do all these things, and she's going to go after her crush, this guy Ryan. And that's like the premise of the book. And then Ryan's cousin comes to town and she ends up joining the Quiz Bowl team with him, and things go from there. I don't know what the second book is going to be. I don't know if it follows them or if it follows a friend of theirs. I think it follows them again, and I think it's like just another year in her life. And I'm excited to read it. Then I picked up Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead writes mystery thrillers. I don't know what this one is about. It says, a killer haunts a small southern town, and 2 outcasts, the preacher's daughter and the boy from the wrong side of the tracks, hold the key to uncovering the truth. I'm not going to look that much more into it. I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I gave it 4 stars, but I have other books by her on my TBR, and this is one of them. And I found it for $8.49. I thought that was a decent deal. It's like basically brand new. It's a paperback, which is my preferred reading method, and I'm hopefully going to get to this at some point. Now we're coming up on one that was actually a gift. My mom got me this. It's a bind up of all of Jane Austen's novels because she knows I love Jane Austen, so I'm excited to put this on my shelves. I need to unwrap it. I haven't done that yet, but it's got like gold sprayed edges, and it has one of those little cloth or like ribbon bookmark things. So this is all 6 of her full-length novels. It doesn't say on the back. I assume they're in publication date order, but I'm excited. I read all of Jane Austen's novels with a group on here a few years ago, and I really am glad that I did that. These are books that I will probably come back to, and I have no qualms with owning a bind up of all of them. I don't know that I will ever read this bind up, but maybe I will. Then I have a horror book that I heard a lot of things about a few years ago, and I've never read, but that is The Troop by Nick Cutter. And my understanding of this is that it's a group of people who are camping on an island. I don't know if it's like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, something like that. And there's a man on this island, and I think it might have to do with cannibalism, but I don't actually know. Either cannibalism or like a weird virus, or both. Who knows? But I am really excited to read this. I've heard that it is very heavy on the body horror, which is something that in books I can really enjoy. I've mentioned this before. I don't really picture things when I read, but body horror I can kind of picture, if that makes sense. So like other horror things don't necessarily work for me and they don't scare me, but body horror can really get under my skin in like a fun way, if that makes sense. So I'm excited to read this at some point. I've heard it's like the scariest book that some people have ever read. Again, I don't hold that too tightly because I know that things in books typically don't scare me, but I also I'm interested in the visceral experience, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping to get to this hopefully soon. I don't know. I bought all of these books with the hopes to get to them relatively soon, but also who knows, you know. I also picked up The Road by Cormac McCarthy. I loved All the Pretty Horses by this author, and I read that in high school, so it's been over a decade. But I read a Western by him during the same vlog where I read that Sarah Gailey book, and I really hated it. So I'm curious to see how this will go for me. This is a dystopian book, I think, and it's about a father and a son, and I don't think they have names, but they're like at the end of the world. And I'm pretty sure I have had this spoiled for me, but I don't really remember what the spoiler is. I just remember I have a vague inkling about what it is. So I'm not going to tell you, obviously, but I'm hoping to really enjoy this. I've heard this is very disturbing and like really harrowing. And the other book that I read by him was disturbing, but like not in a fun way for me, if that makes sense. So I'm hoping that I really like this one. We'll see. I then picked up An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. And this has been on my radar for a few years. I don't know when it came out. 2018 is my guess, but I could be totally wrong about that. 2019. So I was close. But I think this was either shortlisted or longlisted for a Booker. Maybe not, though. Well, now it says it was the 2018 selection for Oprah's Book Club. So I'm kind of confused. But I think this is like a love story told over a long span of time, which is something that I tend to enjoy. I do enjoy books that follow characters for a long period of time, or like follow a family for a long time. And I think that this follows a couple. It says newlyweds Celestial and Roy are living the American dream. He's a young executive. She's an artist on the brink of an exciting career. But after Roy's incarceration for a crime he did not commit, Celestial, bereft and unmoored, turns to childhood friend and Roy's best man, Andre, for support. As Roy's absence drags on, Celestial faces soul-wrenching decisions about balancing loyalty with independence, desire with social and familial expectations, and what is right with what is fair and to whom. So I'm excited to read this one. Again, it sounds like a character story. It's a character study. It sounds like it's going to focus on this marriage and the characters involved in their lives. And I'm very excited to read this one. I've heard amazing things. Next up, I have another mystery thriller, and that is The Family Game by Catherine Steadman. I have been wanting to read this book for a couple years now. I remember when it came out, I was doing those videos where I was doing the like Will I Read It series that kind of flopped on this channel, so I just don't do it anymore. But I read the description and it sounded amazing, and it reminded me of that book, Ready or Not, I think. But I think the premise is that there's this like family with a deadly game, and I don't really know much more about it than that. I'll read you a little bit of it. It says, Harriet Reed, a novelist on the brink of literacy stardom, is newly engaged to Edward Holbeck, the heir of a powerful family, and though Edward has long tried to sever ties with them, news of the couple's imminent marital bliss has the Holbecks inching back into their lives. As Harriet is drawn into their lavish world, the family seems perfectly welcoming. So when Edward's father, Robert, hands Harriet a tape of a book he's been working on, she's eager to listen. But as she presses play, it's clear that this isn't a novel, it's a confession. A confession to a grisly crime, a murder, and suddenly the game is in motion. So I'm very excited to read this. Again, it reminds me a little bit of that movie Ready or Not, which is like a married couple. I think it was the night after their wedding or the night of their wedding. They played a game as a family and she drew hide and seek. And that meant that you had to hide and then they were trying to kill her and she had to either survive the night or kill them in return. And that movie is so fun. I love that movie. It has the girl who looks like Margot Robbie but isn't, if you know what I'm talking about. I'm very excited to read this at some point. Next up, I have my most recent acquisition. I went to, I think it's called Posey's Gifts and Books in Overland Park. My husband for Christmas got me a booklet of a bunch of different bookstores near us, and they all had gift cards. So that's what he did. So he's been taking me on little like book dates. So we go to a nearby coffee shop and get a drink, and then we go to a bookstore and buy a book, and this is the one that I got from there. And this is Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. This came out a couple years ago. I've been wanting to read it since it came out because I loved Prep by this author, and I also really enjoyed Eligible, which is a Pride and Prejudice retelling by this author. So I'm hoping that I will like this one as well. It's about a sketch writer for the Night Owls, and I think it's like a hate to love type thing. I don't want to look too much into this. I remember it sounding good, and then I just never picked it up. I never pulled the trigger on it, but I've been seeing this in bookstores everywhere, and I finally decided to pick it up. Next, I have two books by the same author. One of them I've actually already purchased and reread, and that is The Other People by C.J. Tudor. This is about a guy named Gabe whose family is murdered. He has a wife and daughter, and they are murdered, and when he's driving home from work on the day that they're murdered, he doesn't know that they're murdered yet, and he sees his daughter in the back of a car. And so then he calls his home phone to be like, hey, what's going on? And the police answer and say, where are you? Like, your wife and kid are here murdered. And he's like, can't be my kid. He's like, it can't be my kid. I just saw my kid. And this is like a few years on from that, and he's just looking for his daughter. You follow a couple other perspectives. There's a woman named Fran who has a daughter named Alice who you follow, and Alice has a sleep disorder. And you also follow this woman named Katie, who is a waitress, and she keeps seeing Gabe at the service station that she is a waitress at. And so it's about how all of their lives intertwine, and it's so good. I love this book. I'm so glad that I reread it, and yeah, it held up. It was just as good. In fact, I even upped the rating from 4 to 5 stars. So highly recommend. I really enjoyed this book. And because of that, I'm just really excited to pick up The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. I don't really know what this is about. It says, an unconventional vicar must exorcise the dark past of a remote village haunted by death and disappearances in this explosive and unsettling thriller from acclaimed author C.J. Tudor. That's all I really know about it. I'm excited to read this one. I had to pick it up when I saw it because I was actually in the process of rereading the other C.J. Tudor when I picked this one up, and I am excited to get to it. I actually only have a few more. One of these is a book that I purchased because I loved it. I've already read this one, but it's In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. This was it one of my favorite books of last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember when I read this, but this is about a woman who, how do I explain this? She like had this group of friends in either high school or college and hasn't really spoken to most of them since then. And one of the girls from that group is getting married and invites the main character to her bachelorette party. And it's at this like remote cabin in the woods, and there's someone else in the woods. And that's the premise of the book. But it was so good. So the main character is like, I don't know why I was invited, but she goes and she's trying to figure out why she was invited to this trip. And then also things happen outside of that. I loved this book. I love Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware really works for me. I know she's not an author for everybody. I see a lot of like mixed opinions on her, but I really love her. So I'm glad to have another Ruth Ware book on my shelves. And the last book that I have is a book that I have not read yet, but I do plan on reading hopefully soon. Don't hold me to that though. We all know that I say I'm going to read something and then I never do. But Woman Eating by Claire Kohda. I believe I put this on my January TBR. I have not read it yet, but I'm very excited to own this now. I found this copy at Half Price Books, and it's about a woman who is mixed race, and I think her mom was a vampire, so she like can eat human food, but she also craves blood because she's a vampire. And I think the premise is it's like a character study of her trying to figure out herself. I think her mom has just died or something, or for whatever reason she's on her own and she's trying to figure out the world as she knows it by herself. So I'm really excited to read this one. I think it's more like sad girl lit fic type thing, which is very popular now, and I am convinced that I will like, although I don't always. So I'm hopeful that I'll like this. It's a very slim book, and that's why I bought it. But those are all the books that I picked up recently. Now I'm going to go through my shelves and try to find a place for all of these, and I will bring you along with me. So starting off, we have 3 books that I'm going to shelve as fantasy. So I know Crooked Kingdom is going to go next to Six of Crows. I've already moved some stuff around, but I might have to move something else. Let me check this. There we go. So Six of Crows is going right there. And then this is Ninth House and Hellbent. Sylvia Moreno Garcia needs to go up here. Right here. So make some room. I think this will probably fit. Hold on. And there she is, next to Julia Fine and Charlene Harris. And then down here on the second fantasy shelf, let me back up a second. I'm going to put the Pink Shepherd book right here. Okay. And so that is how this is looking now with the 3 new books on their shelves. I don't know what I'm going to do about this little corner because it's not really big enough for a knickknack anymore. So I'll have to have a look-see around and see what I want to do here. But for now, we'll put the dinosaur with Elf on him back up here. I don't know why this even exists, but that will be the divider there for now. Moving down to the mystery thriller shelf, we have quite a few mystery thrillers to put in here. So let's see. We have Ashley Winstead, which will go down after Ruth Ware on the bottom. We also have a Ruth Ware that I can just put in. I do want to have these kind of in publication date order. They're not right now, so that's embarrassing, but let me sort out and I will show you what it looks like. So as you can see, I've switched the order of these so that they're now roughly in publication date order. I put Midnight is the Darkest Hour here on the end, and then my CJ Tudor books are going to go right here. This might change. Well, actually, I think this will all fit because we have 1 book to add up here, but there's a space. I'm not sure what is supposed to go in that space, unless there just is a space. So I will put my Catherine Steadman book up there. Actually, Steadman is also going to go down here. So I'm just going to move something down here up there. Give me one. Okay, so as you can see, I moved The Chain by Adrian McKinty up here, and I moved Catherine Steadman down here, and that's how that's going to be for now. Now, this is my horror section, and I also have some horror books to add. I have 3 books that I'm classifying as horror. So it's Woman Eating, The Troop, and The Road. So I need to figure out how I'm going to put those on the shelf. Okay, so ignore the slight lean. We're going to have to figure something out with that. But I have officially added The Troop by Nick Cutter in between Peter Jelly Clark and Mark Z. Danielewski. Clara Kohda is going to hang out over here by Stephen King and Bentley Little. And then Cormac McCarthy will be on the other side of Little before we get to Catriona Ward. So there we have the horror books all shelved. And that's what I've got. Next up, this is, I've made a little space where I think my Jane Austen compilation is going to go. I hope it fits. If not, I'm going to have to figure something else out, but I think this will do it. So give me one second. And just like that, she is in this spot. I will say she doesn't look great there. I think it's because the rest of my classics are kind of like bummed paperbacks for the most part, or just like not beautiful editions. I have this edition of Emma here that I'm going to keep because, again, Emma is my favorite Jane Austen, so that is going to stay. I also have some mass market paperback Jane Austens over on my mass market paperback shelf. So now we're going to move up here to sci-fi because I have some sci-fi to shelf. Okay, so again, I'm not totally pleased with this. I need to buy more of those plastic bookends to go right there. But right now I have an old reading journal, okay, and that statue from Barcelona. So Becky Chambers has gone up here by Diane Chamberlain, and Sarah Gailey is between, I don't remember that author's name, Finlay and Matt Haig. And I put the Sarah Gailey up there because it's dystopian, so I'm counting that as sci-fi. I don't know where the best place to put it is, though, to be honest. Moving on to romance. This should be relatively easy because I don't have a ton of romance, and I have a whole shelf for them because I plan on buying more romance. But I have An American Marriage and Curtis Sittenfeld. And so Jones will go after Hildebrand, but before Beth O'Leary. Right there. And Sittenfeld will go here. It's also occurred to me that I don't think I put One Day in December on my list of books that I haven't read yet that I own. So sorry about that. That was an oversight on my end. There's that. Still lots of space to grow. Don't pay attention to that. Eventually this will look nicer. This shelf is where we're going to need to do a lot of rearranging. This has kind of become my catch-all shelf because it's like the mostly empty one. So first things first, the Emery Lord books will go here. Scoot that over so that I can fit 2 books right here. There they are in all of their glory. And now we need to sort this out because I've got several books to add here, just 2 actually, but I got to figure out where I'm going to put them. So bear with me. Okay, so what I did was I moved these 2 books back up here so that I could shelve, really good actually, right here next to Tom Hanks, and then Maggie O'Farrell next to Earthlings and The Swimmers. So that's what we've got. I'm going to rearrange some of the knickknacks now, and I will show you the final product. So I did end up putting that there. I haven't done a whole ton to right here, but I moved the dinosaur head up there because I feel like the visibility for that is better up top than the Gaudi thing. And now I have that picture there because there's a smaller gap. I have these down here, and again, catch-all shelves. So I think my library is due for a rehaul or a revamp now that I have more books to like use up all the spaces, and then as we run out of space, we can do something else. Like I can probably, if I wanted to, I could probably move the horror books somewhere else. I could probably move the romance over here, maybe the horror here. I don't know. We'll just have to decide what we're going to do, but this is it. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you would like to, you can subscribe to my channel because I do try to post 2 videos every week, and I will see you in another one very soon. Bye!